technology is always a solution in the crisis. So technology will be really handy. There are multiple areas in which this technology would be adopted. One area is in the conduction of admission tests, the learning space.
For online education to really become mainstream and enroll, millions of students rather than hundreds of thousands of students, we need to have online degrees that are accredited by the various agencies.
My message to all the students and the higher education stakeholders is we need to double our efforts in this time in order to sustain and keep our economy afloat.
In India, we have to look at technology and education 4.0 as actually providing education to the uneducated, people who are not getting quality education.
Education 3.0 was nothing but technology driven. This is now going to be a permanent feature and is now going to figure in all the teaching learning activities of times to come.
So welcome to yet another Collegedunia Connect chapter. As we all know, the National Education Policy has been approved by the Union Government, is now the talk of the town. Every student as well as education institutes are trying to understand the policy and the impact that it will have on education in India. Hence, Collegedunia Connect brings the stalwarts of the higher education industry together on one platform, wherein we want to discuss how the new policy is going to shape the future of education in India. The education policy has been changed after 34 years, bringing a new era of education in India. There are nearly 20 major changes that have been incorporated, such as higher education institutes shall aim to become multidisciplinary institutions. Bachelor's degree will have multiple exit options, and one of the most crucial changes is that the 10+2 structure in school education is modified to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, covering ages of 3 to 18. These are some of the many changes that will bring a new step in our education industry. So today we have eminent panelists to help us understand these changes in a better way and let us know the impact of NEP 2020 on students and the industry players. Let me start the discussion by introducing each and every one. But might I just add, I might fumble introducing their achievements because it's a long list of achievements indeed. So first of all, we have Professor Dr. Sujoy Biswas. Professor Biswas is the Director CEO of Techno India University and Techno India Group. He is a doctorate in engineering after having his BTech from Jadavpur University and MBA from Kolkata University, where he was the recipient of gold medal for securing first-class honors with first position. Professor Biswas is a chartered engineer, a valuer impaneled with all the major banks of the country, along with impanelment in Income Tax Department and the Calcutta High Court. He is considered as one of the topmost valuers of Kolkata by his peers in the community. Professor Biswas is also the anchor and director, and many of you might recognize him from the show Joyer Pathe Shangye Shuja. Welcome, sir. A very warm welcome to you. Moving on. We have with us Mr. Pradip Chopra, who is the chairman of iLEAD CMD PS Group. He is also a member of the advisory committee to the Vice-Chancellor of Macau, which advises on how technology and online content can be used to further education. Mr. Chopra is passionate about education and spends almost 6 hours every day teaching students at St. Xavier's University, J.D. Birla Institute, and iLEAD almost 6 days a week. That's a lot of time into teaching, indeed. He is the convener of TPF initiative Udan, which provides 100% scholarship to meritorious but financially weak students from all over the country. All students, irrespective of the caste, community, religion, can apply for the scholarship. Mr. Chopra is also the president of Murshidabad Heritage Development Society, and he has written several books on real estate, personal development, relationships, etc. As I said, the list goes on for everyone. He contributed many articles in the leading national dailies such as The Hindu, The Statesman, The Times of India, Hindustan Times, The Telegraph on real estate. Welcome to our show, sir. Very much welcome. Thank you, sir. Now we have Dr. Supriya Patnaik, who's presently the Vice-Chancellor of the Centurion University of Technology and Management, who has an extensive teaching research and policy experience. Her research interest in the field of gender and development issues are social work pedagogy in different contexts. She is an industry licensed person from RMIT University, Melbourne, Australia, also research fellow at St. Petersburg State University, Russia. She has several publications to her credit, the latest being she edited along with Dr. Margaret Kumar entitled Positioning Research 2018, and has worked with NGOs, multilateral and bilateral agencies, federal and state government, universities in India and Australia, and the list of achievements goes on. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you for being on the show. And we have Mr. Joutishman Dutta, who is the managing trustee of Assam Downtown University. And he has been involved in this college from the stage of conceptualization to application to inception since its beginning in 2010. Right now, Assam Downtown is the largest university in its own region. He is also the director of Downtown Hospital, and he is also the managing director of Downtown Enterprises. Welcome to our show, sir. So, we shall discuss about the National Education Policy 2020, which has been implemented. And the first and foremost question that I want to put on to our panelists is that how critical and beneficial are the recommendations of NEP to improve the quality of education in India? Dr. Patnaik, we shall start with you.
Yes. First of all, thank you to you, Indranil and Collegedunia, for having me on this panel. It's indeed a privilege. I think what we need to recognize, and I especially being a social scientist, I recognize, and the policy does too, that education is a public service, right? And that it is the right of every student to get education, to receive that education. We also know that poor quality of education obviously has a detrimental effect in various areas, whether it be enrollment, whether it be retention, and several other things. So we do need to bridge the gaps that exist in access, in participation, and in learning outcomes. So that, I think, is a very important thing that the policy highlights, and I think we need to recognize that. We need to also, I think, in terms of what are the critical areas, what is important is to see that there has been a very strong there is going to be a greater investment in education, and as long as it's used effectively and efficiently, which is also pointed out, it will lead to better quality, certainly. And making the education ecosystem more flexible for a student will ensure that a student gets a greater choice in what they would like to pursue. And integrating skills into higher education, again, makes a student future ready. All these things which are outlined very clearly in the education policy are really going to be beneficial to a student in a higher education institution.
All right. So we have Mr. Dutta joining us. Welcome to the show, sir. Very warm welcome to you. So the question in discussion... Good evening, sir. The question in discussion is, how critical do you think the recommendations of NEP to improve the quality of education in India?
Sorry, I was a little disconnected, so I have not entirely sure what ma'am has said, but I'm sure ma'am's words would have mostly covered the basic issues. See, I think for all of us, maybe students or people in these education administration, we have always complained about two basic issues. Students have complaints about rigidity. Why do we have to study what we have to study despite knowing we don't need to study? Somewhere there was always an agreement between even the students and the teachers and more or less everyone around. So NEP to a great extent kind of addresses that. It gives you a flexibility which I think the Indian education system has never seen before. I think there's no one in India who would disagree to that. It would give you flexibility from the point of view of the students. He would have now much more options. No option like this were ever available. Honestly, it was never even imagined before the draft came out that such a radical decision would be taken by the Indian government. That is one point. Second point is, I believe, again, one of the huge issues was rigidity from the point of view as education administrators, we had the same problem, irrespective of whether it's the government or the private. I believe the policy also is trying to address that. As a university, we have now to take, say, permissions or affiliations or accreditations despite being an autonomous university from 9 bodies. So now I believe it would be addressed that now we have to go to one form, a single window clearance, which existed in India but didn't exist in Indian education. Secondly, there is a lot of talk about giving autonomy. So these are issues that, see, I'm not going to go into in-depth issues and in-depth point-wise what is given, what is not given. But this basic problem of rigidity, the Indian education system was almost in shackles. We were tied up. Students were tied up. Colleges were tied up. Now the key has been given to us. How fast we can open, it's up to us. How fast can we embrace it? How fast can the students embrace it? How fast can education administrators, teachers open the lockup? And how far can we open our arms and run? It's up to us now. But the key is given.
I would also like to know Mr. Pradip Chopra's thoughts on the same. How critical do you think the recommendation of NEP to improve the quality of education in India, sir?
I'm there on the microphone. Just my webcam is not working.
Yes, I would come to you. Mr. Chopra? All right. Mr. Chopra, for some reason, your audio is not coming through. Meanwhile, over to you, Dr. Biswas.
Yeah.
So how critical and beneficial are the recommendations of the NEP to improve the quality of education in India?
Yeah, I'll just like to, this is a paradigm shift in education. Yeah, this is a paradigm shift in education. And as my previous speaker, Joutishman Dutta told, there are several good sides which I'll also mark. And then we'll just also we need to embrace the challenges also. So what are the good sides? The good side is focus holistically on some issues which lead our access, equity, infrastructure, governance, learning, advocating, forward thinking. Then it's an amalgamation of need-based policy, cutting-edge research, and best practices, paving the way for New India. If we call it New India, then it's New India. So what are the issues that they have mainly worked on is universalization of access from early childhood to higher education. This is universal now. Integrating the 2 crore out of school children, because now they are trying to indicate that no time is lost, no space is lost with the credit transfer mechanism happening automatically. Now it's a concerted effort directed at socio-economically disadvantaged groups. This is very important. Whatever, with more than 135 crore population, there is a huge percentage of economically disadvantaged. So it will reach to that. And it will lead, like the internet, it will reach the last mile, the last train. And the country cannot grow strong if this last mile is not strong. So it will ensure early childhood care and education. So early childhood care and education will be taken care, and the pedagogy is changing. The whole pedagogy is changing. It will now be an activity-based pedagogy, which will lead to a strong foundation for education, which is very required at this point of time. Then you see that now there is dismantling of the rigid distinction between curricular, extracurricular, and co-curricular. To be a total human being, all these stuff are required: curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular. A boy may rank first in the class, but he may not be the best employee or the best entrepreneur. In order to be a successful human being, you have to have all the kind of skills imbibed in you right from the childhood. So this education policy opens you up for that. And there is now multiple provision of multiple entry and exit options in higher education. In an environment, in a human life, there will be several ups and downs. And we have found many people whose education have not been completed because at certain point of time, they left the first year or the second year, maybe of engineering itself. Like take the case of Sushant Rajput, who did up to third year and died. Now, if he had a fallback that he can come back and can use his credits and carry it forward, he might have thought of reverting back to engineering. So, this exit option and re-entry option, and the revamped the curriculum. Then now, the education policy also majorly speaks of adult education, lifelong learning. You can keep on. Now, this much termed vocal for local. That means one vocational skill in the next 5 years is characteristic of this. And the skill gap analysis, practice-based curriculum will lead to actually, it will not be a myth. Vocal for local is not going to be a myth, and it's happening. Then, you know that I keep on saying that excellence is not an act. Excellence is what you do repeatedly, or what you do as a part of your habit. So excellence is an act and not anything else. So similarly, what can be measured cannot be improved. So this has been given quite a stress upon. And then we'll have to performance, asset, review, analysis, and knowledge of holistic development, what we call the PARAK, or the National Center for Performance. This PARAK will take care. And there will be continuous tracking of learning and flexible board exams, conceptual assignments, and AI-enabled data systems, to mention a very few. Cutting it short, the teacher education is reimagined. We are talking of pedagogy. We are talking of lifelong learning. So it's not that the teacher's education is complete at any point of time till the time he retires or till the time resigns from a human life. So this lifelong education and comprehensive curricular framework, multidisciplinary programs, and stringent actions against substandard. When we are talking of autonomy on one side, then it is also talking of stringent action against substandard institutions. You cannot think that you can keep on doing anything, just distributing mark sheets and your certificates without having this. And this, so it will lead to right teachers in the right institute. Then the next point I would like to mention is creation of an academic credit bank. This is very important. Anytime you can exit on entry, because there should be academic credit bank. I can have my credit stored, and at a later point of line, I can go forward. So it's a modern but rooted system, what we have spoken about. Then, single, as Mr. Dutta told, I'll repeat, single regulatory body. We as a university, Techno University, we have taken permission from Bar Council, Council of Architecture, Pharmacy Council, any council that we have to go, sir, please see our these things are there, please see, sir, please allow. Then only we are allowed. Architecture Council, from increasing 20 seats to 40 seats, we have to do so much. So once you have given a permission, you know that there was a Supreme Court guidance that that university, which is granted by the state or the center, does not require a AICTE accreditation. But at the same time, when the students come, they will ask, sir, do you have AICTE accreditation? As if we don't have AICTE accreditation means we don't have. So we, after getting a UGC permission, had to go to AICTE for getting permissions, because we are not getting students. Students are not happy with us. So the thing is, this is going to help everyone along. But at the same time, these stringent actions against substandard delivery is very, I appreciate. So now becomes, when we talk of NBA, we talk of outcome-based education, or OBE. So this is now an outcome-based education which have an outcome-based accreditation, and the goal of and will achieve the goal of sustainable development. So I think we'll have critical thinking, experiential learning, interactive classroom, integrated pedagogy, competency. But one thing, these are all the good points that I tell you. And I think that it's a leap forward, giant leap forward towards being a superpower at the end of the day. The challenge is translating this into action, implementation of this policy. It is not going to be, it is going to be very difficult. What are the people who are going to do, who are in class 10, who are in class 12? What are the people who are going to do, who are in diploma education? Will there be lateral entry? Because diploma education, not only in engineering, there is pharmacy, there is everything, there is diploma education. Will the diploma holders, what will the diploma holders of the first year who are taking this year will do? These are the issues that we need to address. And these are the issues we have to, these are the challenges, and there will be many more challenges because it's going on for the last 34 years, there has been no change. Now, a 34 years change will definitely be very, very difficult to implement. Now, that's from my side.
That is completely true. And there's a lot to take from whatever you said, sir. And in that note, there's a point which I stuck to, the autonomy of colleges. Right? So this question is to Dr. Supriya Patnaik. Ma'am, does the government step towards making all colleges autonomous be beneficial for higher education institutes? If so, how? And if not, why not?
Yes, I think, yes, first of all, I think previous speakers have spoken so much about the policy and have highlighted what are the issues in it already. So, yes, the policy also very clearly highlights some of the drawbacks with our education system that have been there for a while. And one of them that is clearly highlighted is universities which have had several affiliate institutions, which has led to actually substandard education. It's very clearly spelled out there. So I think it was very obvious from that you would move on to looking at some form of autonomy to the colleges. I think again the last speaker, Dr. Biswas, when he spoke about how effective is it going to be in its implementation. And eventually it is about, you can grant autonomy, but it is about how much investment which is going to go into it. It is how much are the equipped to deal with these kind of changes. The other recommendation which goes with it is that every institution should become multidisciplinary. So that again has its own implication. So I think it's a very long plan which has been set out. What we should emphasize as educators ourselves is that this kind of policy should be very dynamic. There should be a process which has to be institutionalized, which enables feedback from various stakeholders, and how that feedback is actually sanitized and then fed back to policy making. If that doesn't happen, somewhere along the way, it'll get derailed, or it'll get stagnant at some place. So I think that is key to making a lot of the initiatives which have been spelled out there in the policy, have a successful outcome. Unless you look at how the feedback is actually taken note of, by policymakers, not much will happen. But I think as a move to address the issue of quality education, autonomy is a very good move, because I think these kind of affiliate colleges, as the policy itself has identified, was always a big issue. So it is to build and strengthen the institutions and then provide the autonomy simultaneously.
All right. In terms of that, I would ask this question, Mr. Dutta. With the online education becoming the need of the hour, right? We were discussing about this. How will the NEP support and resources be critical in incorporating a new channel of education for every student? And what challenges will be there, and how can institutes prepare themselves to handle them, sir? I think his feed is off. Dr. Biswas, any thoughts on the same?
Yeah, will you repeat your question?
Yes, surely. With online education becoming the need of the hour, right? How will the NEP support and resources be critical in incorporating a new channel of education for every student? What challenges will be there, and how can institutes prepare themselves to handle it?
See, it's going to be a huge challenge. It's Himalayan challenge, okay? Because that's my first-hand experience of that. In addition to my capacity as the director and CEO of Techno India University and Techno India Group, I also run a television program I ran it for the last 4 years, and recently on the the COVID-19 aspect. And I'm talking to countries across the world. I have control of 14 to 16 countries, and every country, starting from United States to Bahrain, Kingdom of Bahrain, there is issue of internet. So when we come to India and when we talk of online education to the last mile, the last level, then institutions cannot only assure the connectivity. The government, the infrastructure providers, even the private players need to ascertain flawless connectivity in order to be, because that when I'm talking, if you're not getting the full vibe of, first it's online, you're not seeing me physically, you cannot see my passion, my study behind it, my cumulative knowledge behind it. You can only see what I communicate, and that too through to my this some inches by some inches screen. And now your connectivity is not there. Sometimes there, sometimes not. The video getting stocked, your audio getting stocked. Like what had happened that Mr. Dutta got lost. He couldn't take the question itself because he got lost. So if this kind of, Mr. Chopra lost the connection, I couldn't come on the video itself. So these are not issues for Collegedunia or something like that. It's happening in fact on platforms like bigmarker.com, which is a very, very big company around all over the world. So this is an issue that needs to be not only decided by the institutions, this is an issue decided from the policymakers. As I said, that the challenges are there. As I said, I was making to you offline, that online education, I will believe till my physical body is there, it cannot be the only method of education. It will be a blended method of education with offline and online combined. But at the same time, I keep on saying that sound is everything which happens in the world, which can change a world. Sound. In Bengal, it is called Shabdoi Brahma. Sound is Brahma, and sound can change the entire universe. Any good speaker. Take the example of our much loved Prime Minister. He speaks so well, and we are enamored by his speeches, and the whole dunya and the whole India listens to him. Why? Because he's a good speaker. He's an excellent orator. What he says, I'm not going into the political aspect, but the personal aspect, he's a very brilliant speaker. And whosoever had been brilliant speaker had been good leaders, because sound changes. And if you cannot ensure this sound, if you cannot change, and then we call Pahle Darshandhari Piche Gun Bichari. Now you cannot show that person. Then and all depends on the bandwidth, all depends on the connectivity, and connectivity is going to be an issue which not only the institution but the country as a whole, the central government, state government, everything should handle their hands together to have even a blended method of education in coming days.
Dr. Biswas mentioned all the challenges. Mr. Dutta, how do you think institutes can prepare themselves to face these challenges?
See, to be honest with you, I think when the biggest irony of this whole show was when you asked me the question on online education, my network. I don't know, Mr. God answered your question, but the answer came to you very clearly.
So it was basically, if I can just go through the question as well, because I don't want you to miss out on the question.
It's fine. I think Sir has answered it better than even I can. So there's nothing. See, institutes can only prepare so much. See, now we have an online system because we don't have a choice. Today, you have to agree that we are all in a way privileged and have the best hardware and software connection. And despite that, this is what you're going through. Our students are scattered across villages and towns, across states. So we have a multiple system. Now online delivery is happening multiple system. How best we can prepare? Yes, we have an entire LMS. It's fancy to talk about that. They get live classes, live notes. We are also following very rudimentary things. We're mailing them stuff. We are sending them things through WhatsApp. So parallelly, almost 3 mediums of channels have been used to teach them things. But I completely agree with Sir. As institution, there is only so little we can do. We can only put in the effort. But live delivery is not happening. We are trying to do online examinations as well. Yes, 90-95% students are succeeding with hiccups to do it. But we don't think we are at the stage when we can reach 100% efficiency. Meaning to upgrade it is a question of even mindset. It's a question of effort. Meaning there was a time when your children topped examination. You used to give them books. You used to say study. That's how you become. I think it's going to become like we have to stop giving toys to kids and only give them tabs and the best internet connection. It's going to be a huge mindset connection which is going to happen in the next few years. There are so many schemes in my state. I'm sure every state, Every girl who passes class 10 gets a cycle, someone gets this, someone gets that. Everything needs to stop. Give them only tabs and internet. And hope there are more Mr. Ambanis in India who can get us better infrastructure. Because this is the whole change system has to be made. And yes, it will improve in the coming years. Today we were caught without any planning or preparation. Yes, it's getting much harder. But if we make this conscious effort in the next few years, yes, we can make it better. How much better? I'm not in a state to comment on it. But it has to be an effort from every stakeholder that today internet and hardware is no more a luxury. It is as essential as having a book. If you have a book, you can study. Forget the book now. Now you need internet. That is a mindset that we need to change. If we make this conscious effort, it will be much better for all universities, institutions to deliver. But yes, as even institutes, we need to adapt. Teachers need to adapt that now this is not a choice. Let's not talk about the old times. We don't have a choice, let's be honest. So as we embrace it, it's best for us. So let's not even discuss it. I know, but what is a classroom can never be replaced. I'm with sir on that 110%.
No, I'll add to that. Mr. Dutta, I'll add to that.
Yes, sir.
Now, that I keep on calling that general people take perception as reality. Perception क्या है? Perception है कि many of people are telling that to converse in Hindi. That at the side I can see the question and answers that. So perception क्या है? Perception है कि institution infrastructure नहीं देता. This is normal that ये नहीं रहता. ये पैसा कमाता है education से और But what is reality? Perception is not reality. Reality is the infrastructure is not there. The institutions are there with both the hands to grab as much infrastructure as possible. Because people should understand that more the infrastructure that we can use, the less the expenses we'll have. Even in the blended method, that I keep on calling that in a blended method, you can also get rid of the infrastructure requirement. The ICT or whatever commission is going to come needs to do that, whether the knowledge base or the knowledge base of the institution is there or not. Not the square feet area, not anything else, but the knowledge base and the communication. Now you said 20:1. क्या करेगा if one faculty cannot deliver a lecture, उसका biodata देख के आप क्या करेगा? If a person can now 2 classes or 3 classes on the same subject of different stream, maybe civil, electrical, mechanical, and electronics and computer science can be called one faculty to who is the best. But if you go for accreditation, you have to show 1:20, and some teachers have to pay without teaching or without their skills, and some less paid up their skills. So I think there is both an opportunity and a threat to this. So and in institutions, I think will embrace with open arms whatever infrastructure the government can give.
True.
On that note itself, right? So as we are discussing the challenges and the implementation of the entire thing, this question is to Dr. Supriya Patnaik. Ma'am, I want to know, will the new regulatory system be easier to work with versus the old system? And on grounds of what Mr. Dutta and Dr. Biswas has said, we shall continue discussion on that note.
Yeah, I think they have kind of, I like the way Dr. Biswas kind of paints a very nice picture, The thing is that, yes, multiple regulatory bodies have always been a problem. And as he said, you go for the Architecture Council, the Pharmacy Council, this one and the other. So I think that has always been a problem. So now coming to the one body is certainly much more beneficial to higher education institutions. And even that, the policy very clearly spells out that there is going to be not so much more of that inspection kind of a regime. So it's going to be much more of a self-declaration kind of a regime. So I think a lot of flexibility has been brought into the education ecosystem as a whole, and I think that's what is important, and that's where eventually the student benefits. However, I just want to talk about the previous question. Just one thing I would like to say. The biggest challenge in this, and it has always been in our education system, irrespective of online, offline, anything, is the whole idea of equity and inclusivity. So when you are catering to people, as Mr. Dutta said, you're catering to people from rural areas, remote areas, whatever. So these are all layers which are working. So over that, you have a offline face-to-face based education, and over that you have an online kind of a situation where we have to always bear in mind that we are not compromising on equity and inclusivity. That is one thing at every point we as educators should bear that in mind. Nothing excuses that. Nothing kind of, we have to see that we reach the last person out there who wants to be educated.
Yeah.
So that is a key message, I think, that this policy is also trying to emphasize.
On a lighter side, if I can add something, someone quite smartly said, previously, if you made one Babu unhappy, one of your college would be shut. Now, if you make one Babu unhappy, all of your colleges will be shut. So, as academic administrators, now there was a plus point in the whole system also. I just saw it a few days ago. So, you understand how things work in India.
But I keep on saying one thing when I do a motivational talking or even my management classes, that I tell my students that you have no competitor. Why you have no competitor? Who has no competitor? Who can work more than what is provided for? So if we know that what are the things that the agencies are looking for. They are actually looking for good education. Now that is one challenge is there, as Mr. Dutta told us. If there is a fellow, if there is a person who is a crooked person, then it becomes very hard on the. But at the same time, if the persons are fair and square and the institution is fair, we shouldn't have much of a difficulty, because this transparency was required for a very long time. And even even the MCI, the Medical Council of India, AICT people have been debarred from doing this checkings during the accreditation process. So there has been change, fairness much more than the past. And I hope that the new system tries to bring, in a third world country like India where corruption is at its height, it's very difficult to do, but definitely there. And there is also another issue that I find, that there is someone saying that why the government-run schools are not being talked about, because there needs to be huge development in the question and answer section. It's coming. So that is another issue, because the private players will definitely want, but what about the government schools and colleges which are not in the best of the shapes or in challenging shapes? So we need to address that. The government needs to address that too, because when there is uniform education, you won't be spared if you are not given the right kind of lectures or right kind of deliveries or right kind of content. So everyone needs to pull up their socks and go forward. I think implementation is going to be hard, but it's a good step forward.
Yeah, it would be something that is difficult, but it is something, a new age era of education that we deserve, or would be. There's yes-sayers and naysayers of this entire topic entirely, right? And in terms of something that Dr. Supriya Patnaik had mentioned, the flexibility, right? And the flexibility gives the student a lot of different options, a lot of different ways to actually, showcase his own talent, right? So I would want to ask Mr. Dutta this question. Does giving flexibility in terms of multidisciplinary courses and subjects, is it a bane or a boon for students? Or like in the process, will they get confused, or they would express themselves even more?
See, it's too big a question to answer so simply. There are a lot of students, I'll be honest with you. We always assume the students know what they want to do. That's true for a lot of students. For a lot of students, they are not very sure exactly what they want to do. So they now have to choose these combinations of subjects. I'm sure as the fine print comes, there would also be some kind of linkages. For example, tomorrow you want to do something in engineering, you kind of have to do something related to that in maybe schooling. These kind of linkages have to exist. Otherwise, you will not be able to do things. For example, I do not see not studying physics and end up trying to do something in engineering. I'm just trying to explain simply. So some linkages and restrictions in this will always remain. So I would in principle like to believe it's good. As you mentioned, I think initially we were having a chit chat. You studied computer science engineering. Why were you welding in the first year? I also have never understood that. But having said that, there also would be, it would take time. Anything take time. I cannot comment on it immediately. I would love to believe it's a great boon for all the students. But yes, for them now they have to understand better. They have to plan better, which is also a challenge for a few of the students. Because somewhere in this combination, if they do not do the planning properly, they would have problems in the future. Because now whatever we had this rigidity, but rigidity was like they gave you these funnel shape options. You study this, you get this. Now you have to mix everything up, make everything, take all decisions as to what you will study today will also impact what you can study tomorrow. Somewhere this linkage has to come. Otherwise, because some fundamental subjects would be essential to study some fundamental subjects later on. So if you do not do that planning, yes, you are also in for trouble. So that is an aspect that I think students is a bigger challenge for students than us. That I think everyone is so euphoric. I said, great. But you have to understand that this is also a challenge for students. They have to prepare, they have to plan. If they do not, they are also in for a lot of problems.
They have to
when you learn a lot of things you don't need, you also have choices to learn a lot of things later on. Now we'll cut off things we don't need today. Great. After 5 years, you cannot go back.
True. I would want to bring this question to Dr. Biswas. Right. See, Techno India University has collaborations with a lot of places where they incubate, entrepreneurs and all. So, understanding these things, I want to know, will these changes encourage students towards entrepreneurship? And if so, why?
See, entrepreneurship, that what is the Bengali perception of entrepreneurship? I keep on telling my students. I never, in my opening speech or in welcoming them in my college or university, ask them to be entrepreneurs. They find it as a drawback that Techno India will not be able to provide a campus placement, so they are talking of entrepreneurship. And how the Bengali community, we as a whole, perceive entrepreneur. I said perception is not reality, but perception plays a major part. We call business people as Beosai. We don't call, in Bengali, pure Bengali, it's called Babshai. But we call Beosai. Why we call Beosai? Because this is not for learned, educated Bengalis. It is for the less learned other community. In Gujarat, as I learned from my friend in Gujarat, that during that marriage columns, it is given that people runs a business and then they get more draws from the bride side. In West Bengal, if you say that runs a business, ये सोचेगा इसको कुछ नहीं हुआ तो व्यवसाय किया. So, but an educated guy, central government job, state government job, engineer, TCS, Wipro, Infosys, maybe that entrepreneur may be able to employ about 100 of these MBAs and MTechs. So the perception training this education policy only cannot do. But with the open system of education where you can have your credit banks and all, when you can think that let me go for entrepreneurship, let me discontinue the education right at this point of time, I have this passion going forward. So there is a fillip in going into that. There may be a chance. Carrying on from the last question, I would like to add that that actually till many years we do not understand what is our actual strength about. What we should be passionate about. Speakers will tell that go do what you are passionate about. How at the age of 19 or 20, people will discover what they are passionate about? Because they doesn't know the subject. When people comes, that when people comes in colleges, engineering colleges, they would only go for computer science. Why computer science? Because the perception is this, computer science, padega to naukri to mil hi jayega. Whether he understands computer or science, either computer or science, he is not very clear. And I am a poor civil engineer. I keep on telling that if you row civil, that we said that we give the basic needs. Anna, Bastra, Vasastan. So we are available for one of the basic three things, that we give homes to your places. And there won't be any doubt for civil engineers throughout as long as there's human civilization. But if you come to civil, there kuch nahi hua civil. But you cannot imagine how many civil engineers who are entrepreneurs earn much more than the computer engineers who are working in the best of the companies. So entrepreneurship, in order to develop entrepreneurship, people need to just give that there should be another kind of approach towards it. So the counseling sessions and successful entrepreneurs, Pradip Chopra left. I had interviewed in my show, Joyer Pathe Shange Sujoy. And he said at one point of time his scooter was taken away because he could not pay the monthly installments. Pradip Chopra, the leader of iLEAD and the chairman of the PS group, which has more than 400 multi-story in Calcutta, in and around Calcutta. So, and he become an entrepreneur, and he employs now so many hundreds and thousands of people. So he often comes out, and so people like our chairman, our chancellor Gautam Raichaudhuri, he started with 5 rupees, and now employs 5,000 people, more than 5,000 people, and we more than 5 lakh alumni. And so these are the entrepreneurs from Calcutta, from Bengal. It's very required. The successful entrepreneurs should come up. And see, my chairman, I'm not saying because I worked with him for the last 12 years, my chairman is one of the most successful Bengalis in this part of the country. But where the Shera Bengali prize goes, the Shera Bangla prize of one of the most revered channels of the place, goes to people who does the networking, who does the PR work. My boss doesn't believe in PR work. He believes in education. He believes in propagating education. So you know that entrepreneurs needs to be recognized also. Successful Bengali entrepreneurs who are less in number, and also the entrepreneurs from all parts of the country needs to be recognized, so that you get, without recognition, you may say that you do not care for recognition, but recognition is huge, because at the end of the day, it touches your heart and not your head. It's your pride and not your ego. Ego is on the head and the pride is in the heart. So you should go back to your heart, touch the hearts of the people to be entrepreneurs.
All right. I mean, we are sure the increasing entrepreneurs in the country would actually enable us to reach great heights in different sectors and places. And on that note, as Dr. Biswas had mentioned about one question regarding the local and the global context, right? Hindi language and all. So I want to ask this question to Dr. Supriya Patnaik. What do you think, ma'am? How important is the balance between the local and the global context as recommended by the NEP? The focus on languages, arts, and local cultures versus the building global competencies.
Yeah. Thank you. But I think even before that, I would like to add to the question on entrepreneurship.
Sure.
I don't mind. I think, first of all, I agree. Entrepreneurship is, I think it's more of a mindset and attitude and everything, all those kinds of things. Young people have to move from being job seekers to job givers. We know all those kind of things. But I think this actually means something more for higher education institutions. Higher education institutions, the focus, and I'm glad that this policy has come out with much more investment into research, because we have to get into research. We have to get into research translating to production, to design, simulation, production, and only then that mindset of young people changes. So I think unless you kind of start as higher education institutions also get into production, also get into designing, get into the actual technology of things, it's not going to change much. So I think there the fact that the policy looks at much greater investment into research from the center, from the state, from philanthropic organizations, I think that's a very, very, very positive field. So I think the institutions also need to change their mindsets, how they're working. So I think that's while we know that students have their own groups, but I think it's important that institutions also start looking in this direction. Now, coming to your question about the global and the local, I think it's absolutely critical that we get a balance on this. And I think this is that we as institutions have to be globally competitive. There's no denying that. If we are not globally competitive, we will lose out. I was just before this, I was on another webinar which was talking about Harvard coming into India and, promoting their courses and everything else. So, if we are not going to be globally competitive, we really stand not much of a chance. And especially in some disciplines, in almost all disciplines, but those disciplines where that they can be competitive globally in the legal profession, for example, engineering, all these kinds of things, if they are not. At the same time, we need to be locally and very context specific. So, for example, in India, I think agriculture is still such an important aspect. So we need to look at that. However, having said that, I think we have to look at how technology is going to be incorporated into areas like agriculture. I mean, that's the future. We know. we have to be future ready. Our students have to be future ready, whether it is online, whether it requires a huge amount of participation of all stakeholders. And having said that, I also would like to say, you can't just say that it is students are young, they can't make up their minds, and again I would like to come back to the policy, which is one thing which they've emphasized is the whole role of mentorship. And I think that is critical in this whole equation. There has to be the faculty, the teachers, the promoters, the parents, everybody in the equation who have to work as really strong mentors to help students kind of determine and to unleash their creative potential. I think it's not fair to say that you can't be multidisciplinary. What Mr. Dutta was saying is right, that you need to determine what will be the prerequisites. For certain things, you have to have prerequisites. But having said that, why is it that if somebody would want to learn painting, why can't they go into that and then go into design? Even if they're engineers, they can get into that. And we have had students who have done that. So I think there is a lot of scope that is enabled by this policy for students and for all the stakeholders within the educational ecosystem. So I think that I try to respond to your question.
It does. Thank you, ma'am. And I would want to bring our attention to one of the questions which has been asked by one of the audiences, Vishwajit Sarkar. Right. He has been asking about the central entrance examination. So just to fill up a little bit of context, right? There are a lot of institutions or universities which have their own entrance exam, right? Like even Centurion has CUEE, right? SRM has NEP. So these are entrance examinations which are there. So I'll start off with the views from Dr. Biswas. So will the common entrance test help institutes in simplifying the admission process, or will it dilute or standardize the different objectives that each institute might have?
Central engineering test for the whole country, that it somehow means defocuses there are a lot of students throughout the country who cannot afford to go out of the state. Just forget about their economic, forget about their intellectual capacity. They cannot go out of the state because of their economic capacity. Let us understand that out of this 134 crore population, how many people can afford for a higher education? Whatever the charges in private engineering colleges or universities, how many can afford? And what little percentage of education is available for the government institutions, government engineering colleges or government universities? So that number percentage is so minuscule that a common engineering test, and even if a economically challenged family member just writes through the exam and can get in maybe Delhi College of Engineering, which may not be that high charge, but he won't afford the charge to go to Delhi and stay over there. So this common engineering test for across the country, I think somewhere it has its flaws inbuilt into it, because we are not taking the holistic point of view. The holistic point of view is that most of the major part of the state people wants to stay in the state and in their best university. Now, forget the cases of the IITs. If the IITs, the old IITs, or maybe IIT Guwahati, which has garnered some name of its own. Otherwise, people do not want to go out of the state. Even IITs, people think that they go with that because whether they can afford their cost or not. In a Jadavpur University, where I'm an alumni of and my daughter is reading, the whole charges for engineering is 20,000 rupees. Whole charge is 20,000. I'm saying 22 followed by only 4 zeros. That is the charge for 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And why will people, that people may come from the other state, but here a PG costs 6,000 to 7,000 rupees. So maybe 20,000 is affordable. Now 7,000 for PG and 3,000 for another. So 10,000 is 10,000 into 12 with 1,20,000 and it comes to 5 lakh in 4 years. So where does the economically challenged person come and read in Jadavpur University even? So people from the state would like to have a techno or some stuff like that, so that whatever they are stays in their own place and can somehow manage to ends meet and can go for the education that may be BTech, MTech, PhD, everything. So this common education test is going to be very dicey if it is not, that like we have some departments which are state subjects and central subjects. So it has to be somehow in between, so that the quality of education is not lighted, the quality of the student is not diluted. At the same time, best of the students can get the best of the, which is happening also till now. That best of the students to the state joint entrance gets in the best of the government universities, and whosoever is not that is coming in downwards, that private universities which are high placed. Even people doesn't go to Jadavpur to the streams if they are not to their liking. They will come to private university, the best of the streams. So now the entrance process is, people from Calcutta goes to out of the state. People from out of the state comes to Calcutta or West Bengal. So it's already there. So I think it needs to be a little bit brushed, but a total paradigm shift is not going to help much, because the whole composition of the country, the whole socio-economic position of the country is not poised for that. It's not United States that people earn as soon as they go out of their, as soon as after 18, they live their own life and earns for them, and the parents hardly supports or doesn't need the support after a certain point of time. It's not in any other place. It's India. It's a Bharatvarsha, and we have to go by that.
That is.
I can add something here. I can add something.
Wait, so for everyone, I would be asking.
Yeah, it's a very funny thing that we are all happy that there is no examination, but this is an examination again. We have no examination in school. Now we have an examination to get into college indirectly. It has to be. This is an examination of some form. So now the perception, as sir was telling about, there is perception that this is done so that quality is managed. Meritorious students get into universities. Private colleges always have a perception that we take anyone and everyone. Why would a good college take bad students? Everyone only good students. If you get good students, they are the ones who are more interested to study. They are the ones who will get better placed in the long run. Only good students are the ones.
They become good alumni, which becomes good ambassadors of the institution.
But somehow this is done. The perception is that we sell seats. Whoever pays us will take them. So this is supposed to beat that purpose. Now the whole question of it's supposed to be inclusive. Now tell me, whatever the entrance exam is, we have seen with IIT, we have seen with NEET, the students who do coaching are doing well. That's a fact that we all accept. Back to square one again. It is the students who are from the middle class and upper middle class who will be now doing this coaching for this exam, whatever we call it. It's almost like something like a GMAT or a SAT or whatever we call it. Yes, 2 times a year, great thing. Maybe 4 times a year, great thing. But still, coaching institutes are going to come up now again. Ones who can afford will do coach. They'll have in much better ways, they'll be able to crack this exam. The students who cannot afford will again be at a disadvantage. What is happening with the IIT entrance exam or the medical entrance exam is going to repeat. There, I think that is a point that we are not addressing. So I think leave this to universities. Maybe some of them will not see marks. Some will see some other talent. So let them see that. This will again rise the whole coaching culture. We have this in this thing. And the coaching culture is nothing to do with inclusiveness. You can appreciate that. Yes, there are great people who are doing coaching for free. We see that. But it's not possible to offer coaching and then not charge fees. So it's only going to be beneficial for people who can afford the fees. So this, I have a huge issue, which you understand my reservations with this problem here. This is against inclusiveness.
But it's a different perspective or an intake on it. See, I would want to know Dr. Supriya Patnaik's thoughts on it because, this is centralizing a lot of things. And so, please.
Yeah. So I think, any of these policies, actually the devil lies in its detail. Right? So eventually it is how this pans out, how actually it is implemented. There are very many ways that it can be done. So we need to wait and watch to see what will happen, because you can have cutoffs, you can have different things, you can categorize institutions. I mean, the whole purpose of NAC was that you had a NAC A grade, all these kinds of things. So you will continue to have that, and you can have how it will be apportioned. So there are all these factors. So I said, let's wait and watch. Some of these things, I don't think we should jump to conclusions too quickly. And, for those who we think are disadvantaged might actually benefit from it. So we don't know actually. So let's actually wait and watch to see how it pans out. And I think actually, if you see very clearly the fine print in the policy, it says that it is to avoid these coaching that this has been brought about. And they're going to design the test in such a manner that it does not allow coaching institutions to come in and do this. So like I again said, that let's wait and watch this space and see how things turn out.
All right.
Because
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
Please to continue.
That's fine.
And this is a challenge which is there, which has, I think it is something where we have to wait and watch how it changes. And perspective, there are a lot of different perspectives to it, right? This is one part of NEP which I felt personally, if I might add, that there are different perspectives to this entire thing. It has not an absolute answer to it. All right. This brings us to the last question from the audience. I think this is a very ardent effort for us to notice the question again and again, so as opposed to second time. So I will ask Mr. Dutta to resolve this issue. That is, how can school administrator help students to gear up for this new NEP? As I know that Assam Downtown has schools as well.
We don't have schools anyway, but I see there's a huge challenge is going to be in schools rather than higher institutions. Larger multidisciplinary campuses, many way have adopted most of these things in the last few years in some way or the other. We've had open learning, we've had this. Some components have been already embedded in it. Schools is going to be a radical change, as you understand, meaning they have to do vocational training in between the school. So they have to completely adapt. The entire mindset of the school teachers have to change. Examination is not there. Yes, examination has a lot of problem, but somehow also it helps you to monitor a lot of things. And many people will hate me for saying it, but somewhere some restrictions. Indian education system, despite its good and bad, also has created certain students because of the examination system, which we have seen also helps some kind of merit. So for a school administrator, this is going to be a challenge to entirely change it. The school training, the mindset, new vocational education labs, and most importantly, how they counsel the students, because what they study in the school will have a huge implication on what they can study in the future now, as you understand, because they will be choosing most of the things. I agree. If you do painting, you can definitely study maybe design. I understand the linkage there is perfectly fine, but there are a lot of people where they are in class 8, class 9 are very passionate about painting. Excellent. Somewhere when they are maybe in their class 12, they understand, okay, I need to make money. I think the better money is there in coding. I can't do coding. I didn't even theoretically never even studied fundamentals of logic or maths. Now I'm kind of stuck. So this is going to be a huge challenge. I see this not as a challenge. It's a great thing, people being able to do what they want to do, but somehow they have to address it. Meaning, for me, I have always seen education, we higher education institutes are just the icing on the cake. The cake is the school. The cake ban ke aata hai. Hum thoda sa wahan decoration karke de dete aage. So their challenge is any day much bigger than what we face. So that is going to be like lakhs and lakhs of teachers adapting to this new system, this new training, maybe new labs for vocational. I don't know the fine print what is going to be done, but the biggest challenge is for them. So all the best for them and thumbs up to them for the challenge rather than us, honestly.
All right, we're coming to the end of our episode. So I really would like everyone's gist or last message you would want to give to our viewers. I'll start off with Dr. Biswas.
I'd like to end.
Yes, sir?
I'd like to be the last speaker.
You would like to be the last speaker already. So we'll start off with Dr. Supriya Patnaik. Ma'am, please.
Yes, thank you so much, first of all, again, for this opportunity. But I would just like to say that I think this is a great opportunity for all educators, for all students. It's a way of unleashing the potential, not just of students, of institutions, of also, the disciplinary potential, the ability of students doing various disciplines at the same time to be able to do that, I think is great. And I think we are getting into a new phase, which I think our students, they should just grab this opportunity available to them now. As some of you were saying before, that I wish it was there when we were there, So that is always the question which is there. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and I think the idea now is actually the detailing of it. So we have to really work on that, and we have to ensure that it remains a dynamic process, and that this kind of feedback is always taken continuously, and it's a continuously going back, changing things, reshaping things. So that kind of flexibility should be there to enable this to really enter into its full potential as well, the policy itself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And as Dr. Biswas said, he wanted to go last, so Mr. Dutta.
I'm in the middle between two stalwarts.
Yeah, please take the limelight now.
Impossible to take the limelight when you're between them. So that's never going to happen. I have to physically actually bring a light near me. I'm going to be very, very positive about it. This is a great thing. We've always been suffocated about it and spoken about it, the students and administrators. So I'm only going to see the positive. Very excited, very happy that this has happened. There will be challenges no matter what you do. But no matter what challenges are, they can be overcome. But yes, the intent and the spirit that is there in the policy is very genuine. It looks that is done for a better India, for everyone's betterment. That spirit needs to be there in the implementation, as ma'am said, in every state, by the central government as well as the state governments. We understand in India, one government cannot do everything. And India, we know politics is politics. It will always come at play at some stage. I just hope that the least amount of politics plays at here, and it is done with the best intentions. And yes, absolutely, it is done in the best intention for everyone, and only good things will come out of it. Despite the shortcomings, I think even the shortcomings can be addressed tomorrow. When we implement something, there will be some problem. I think we can fix it. We can fix every problem. But in principle, this is what we needed, and more or less, this is what we've got. So let's embrace it, and just everyone should work for it without criticizing the bits and pieces of it, which will always be there in any policy. It will be there. The intention is great. Let's give it all our effort, and I think we can look for a much better Indian education system.
Dr. Biswas?
See, first of all, I agree with Mr. Dutta and Dr. Supriya Patnaik that it's a positive step forward. There will be challenges. In fact, change is the only constant, and this is a change for good. There will be challenges. Implementation will be a huge issue, but we need to embrace the challenge. But at the same time, the timing of the NEP is not the best of the time. Students, guardians, professionals are in the worst of their psychological time. The reason I said that I want to end this is because of a poem that I like to recite, which I'm reciting in all platforms, because people are so hurt by whatever is happening. We are talking of online, we are talking of driving the economy through the digital economy, we are talking of everything digital and everything so bright and beautiful, but at the same time, it's not. People are, I interviewed a psychiatrist and he told that 90% of the people are not in the best of their mental health, and 10% who are crossing are going to the psychiatrist, which is a very big number. So I'll request everybody, no pandemic has ended the world, so this pandemic is not going to end the world either. We are definitely going to be, it's going to be off maybe with the vaccine or without the vaccine, because as one doctor told, that no vaccine can sustain for a certain number of months or years. So it's going to be over. We need to just pass over the period. Until we pass over, this is the poem for all of them who is not enjoying the time as they might have. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you are trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is strange with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure comes about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up. Though the pace seems low, you may succeed with another blow. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt, and you never can tell just how close you are. It may be near, and it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. Stick to the fight when your heart is hit. When things seem worse, that you must not quit. For all the words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these ones. It might have been, it might have been. So when care is pressing down a bit, rest if you must, but don't do it. Don't do it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. I need to go grab my box of tissues because I related a lot because of the situation as it is. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Biswas. Thank you so much, Mr. Dutta. Thank you so much, Dr. Supriya Patnaik. All of your knowledge are very profound. And before signing out, this last message to everyone. I know change is something that we are always excited or fearful about, but it's truly an honor and a privilege that I am in between engaging in a discussion with such great minds and leaders. And you should have faith in such great leaders in our society and believe that these changes will be easily overcome by their guidance. Thank you so much, everyone.
We will give you a small assignment. All these webinars you've done, I think when the pandemic ends, you need to make us actually meet each other. There's so much more to discuss and talk.
Right.
I think Collegedunia has to be a responsibility. That's the fees you have to pay for our presence. You have to make us meet.
Of course.
But Joutishman, that I keep on telling them one step at a time, and the view is beautiful at the top. The first step is the pandemic should be over. Zero cannot be multiplied by anything.
There's a very nice saying about the pandemic. Pandemic ends only in two ways. Either medically or psychologically. So it's up to us to end it.
For us, psychologically, it has ended. We that we go out to the streets and find people are so careless that you will really see. You won't believe the numbers when you come back and see it in the night, in the middle of the night, that the numbers crossing 50,000, 60,000 per day for the total country. And neither of the places are doing any good.
Thank you, sir and ma'am. It's been a pleasure listening from you.
Thank you, Dr. Patnaik. It has been nice listening to you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you. Nice moderation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.